Elevator maintenance folks, what is the weirdest thing you have found at the bottom of the elevator chamber? I once accidentally lost my driver's license down the little gap in the elevator doors. Just dropped it and was super unlucky as it slipped through. It turned up in my mail 10 years later. Obviously long expired, but still crazy some maintenance guy found it and bothered retuning it. Pest control tech here. Snakes had gotten into the pit and were climbing up and dropping down on people as they rode the elevator. Good times. Worked at a hotel. Guest dropped their phone down the shaft. After a few failed retrieval efforts, we called the elevator guys. They went down, got the phone, and also found a carton of eggs. Rotten, but not cracked. I don't even understand how that could happen accidentally. Well over 1500 tax returns at the bottom of the ATO's North Brisbane office elevator shaft. My dad was an elevator mechanic for about 15 years. He had a very dark sense of humor and would come home with some of the craziest stories. For example, anytime he was in an elevator, he would shake it a little or tap on the displays or buttons and go, "Yep, total piece of crap, inferior piece of crap." And I think he mostly did it to freak people out. One of my favorites. He got a call that someone was hearing weird noises from the elevator. He got inside, rode the elevator up, and sure enough, he could hear it too. For half a second he thought it was a baby crying and realized it was a cat. When he got to a certain floor, he could hear this sad meowing. It obviously wasn't in the elevator car, so he got into the shaft and found this little orange kitty. It had somehow, and I don't think he figured out or told us how, got into the elevator shaft and was sitting in a spot between the floors where it wouldn't get crushed by the elevator, but it couldn't get out. My dad saved it and gave it to the building manager to see if it belonged to anyone in the building. It was the one time he ever told us his story that involved him saving an animal instead of finding dead ones. My dad has a great story about this. He supervised the mechanics, and one of them called him from a mental hospital and said, "You've got to see this." The maintenance guy was called because the elevator wasn't quite sitting level on the ground floor. It was about half an inch too high, and both patients and staff had been tripping on it, but all other floors were no problem. My dad arrived to find the maintenance guy cackling, looking into the bottom of the shaft. There were probably tens of thousands of magazines down there. They had to get a bunch of shovels, a small crew, and a rolling dumpster to clear it out. When it was all done, my dad decided to stay behind and pretend to read a newspaper while he sat in the lobby. After about half an hour, he sees an elderly patient holding a magazine, shuffling slowly toward the elevator. He stops in front of the doors, glances left, glances right, and quickly stoops down, slides the magazine into the gap, and shuffles away as fast as he can with a huge grin on his face. My dad could not help but laugh hysterically. This guy had probably been sliding magazines in there multiple times per day, every day, for decades. I should ask him whether he reported it or let the guy have his fun. Wouldn't surprise me if my dad went with the latter. Our team dropped a Steeler Owl dilator down the dumbwaiter shaft by mistake. When the technician came down and grabbed it off the floor, I'll never forget the look on his face when I told him we need that up here, it's got to go in someone's ass soon. It was priceless. I'm a technician for a hospital. Dealing with rectal surgical tools is very normal. A couch. Not joking. It was a walk-in pit that a homeless person had retrofitted into a small living room. One of my baseball coaches, when I was a kid, lost his glass eyeball in the elevator shaft. Maintenance guy gave a solid WTF. One time, we were doing a rip out at an old factory. They were gutting them and turning them into luxury apartments. The elevator we were taking out was a recity old freight that hadn't run in years. When we finally ran it up, we went down to inspect the pit. It smelled like a dead body had chilled there for half a century. The bottom floor wasn't lit, so I shined my flashlight under the elevator and the whole floor started moving. Roaches. Nasty. Haven't really found anything fun though. I've cleaned out more pits than I could count to. I gave my mom a cheap ring I found. Found a pair of underwear at a hotel. Found a full packet at a courthouse of some lady's case transcribed. I was on a mod once, and one of the hoistway doors had an advertisement sticker for a tennis restringing service, which was weird, because it was somewhere only an elevator guy should be able to reach. I called the number, but it was out of service. I found some cool graffiti from the 40s. That's about it. I worked on escalators for a year and a half. There was a lot more in those pits. I was taking home bent up quarters every day. There was lots of shoe bits, and I was always nervous of coming across used needles in certain units. This question should be my jam, but unfortunately I've never found anything interesting. To coin once. A dime bag of some unknown drug. Plenty of syringes. Or sets of keys. It's mostly just people's junk mail and empty chip bags down there. Not a technician, but do work at a large hotel. A few years ago one of our elevators stopped working. Turned out when they opened it up they found a 3-foot pile of guest folios that were never delivered to the rooms. Later when we looked on the camera we found it was a security guard that got tired of delivering them to the rooms and instead dropped them down the elevator shaft. He did this for months, until he was caught. The elevator guys in my dad's office complex found pieces of a dog's skeleton. Not the whole skeleton, just random parts. TLDR. Turds obligatory wasn't an elevator tech but hotel maintenance. Guest reports waterfall sounds in elevator shaft en route to the lobby. Investigation ensues. Some pump at bottom of shaft is running constantly. Water is still coming out of the drain it's connected to after I unplug it. Find out from notes of third shift maintenance that multiple first floor rooms had repeated clogged toilets all night long. Plumber called. 6-inch sewer drain for the entire building is clogged. Worst clog I've seen in 15 years. Washcloths and TP. Over 7 inches of clog in the pipe. Apparently it was clogged so bad that it was backing up into the laundry room. The drain for the elevator shaft and the rooms closest to the main pipe out of the building first floor suites. Solid turds were left at the bottom of that shaft. I quit about a week later for unrelated circumstances. Keys. Trash. Bugs if the building is exceptionally acidy. Mostly dirt and dust. Found a paint roller that the last guy left there once. It was stuck to the floor. Not a whole lot of weird stuff can make it between the sill and the landing. Surprisingly nothing too extreme, not an elevator tech, but I'm an electrician, so we will find ourselves in a pit from time to time. Some ID badges, credit cards, coins. Once I found a red pen. It was out of ink though. Worked security in a large department store. We routinely had to pop it open to retrieve dropped keys, wallets, and phones. Recovered a 2500 gold necklace covered in poop. A would-be shoplifter darted out of our jewelry department and suitcased the necklace while in the elevator. When he realized we were waiting for him at the exit level he went back up a floor, removed it, and dropped it down the shaft. We arrested him anyway, much to his surprise. Work for a major transit hub. We have our own trade departments. In elevating. Weirdest things I have found are as follows. Chucky doll head. 13 rubber duckies in one pit. Drug needles almost daily. Silicone jump mask. Every day is an adventure. At a place where my wife used to work. A body. There was a crash from the elevator area. The boss went to see what it was. Came back white as a sheet. And said do not go out there. 2 maintenance guys had been working on the elevator. One was in the bottom of the shaft. And the other one made one small error. But in guessing the single most unusual item ever found at the bottom of an elevator shaft was a Wright R2600 aircraft engine. On July 28, 1945 in the Empire State Building. I used to work at an old 22-story building that had the first automated elevator system in our state. The idea was, in order to control the flow of people in the lobby you had to push the button for your floor and the elevator would tell you which one to get on. The elevators would make sure the crowd spread out over the big lobby. Anyway, it was the first time I'd ever seen the auto open eyes used too. I worked on the executive floor, where long-winded executives would often stop me as I was leaving. I got used to passing my hand through the doors to break the eye and hold the doors open. You guessed it, my left hand didn't trip the eye. The doors closed on my hand, which was prevented from closing completely because of my heavy engagement and wedding rings. crushed the whole mess and lost a 2-carat diamond 22 stories below. My hand was only bruised. Thank goodness for a safety shoot off. I like to think that someday someone will find a tiny treasure. Not an elevator technician, but I can tell you some dude at some point is going to find a Kindle at the bottom of a shaft in a Toronto hotel elevator. Rules to remember. Rule 1. Always check that you zipped your carry-on and didn't leave a gap in the bottom. Rule 2. Kindles fit through small carry-on bag zipper gaps and elevator shaft gaps. Not an elevator repair person, but you would be shocked by the number of nurses that drop their keys down the shaft 20 stories up and 2 buildings away from the parking garage, and they already had their keys in their hand. I had to call maintenance all the time for retrieval. I worked as a phlebotomist in a hospital and had just drawn an elderly male patient. As I pushed my little cart into the elevator to go back down to the lab, his blood vials rolled off and both went right down the gap into the shaft. I felt so bad and went immediately back to tell him I had to red row him. He was thrilled. Said he was excited his blood would be down the shaft for eternity. Such a funny guy. Retired 40 years in the trade. The best I ever found was a $20 bill, but no, a man that found a $7,000 diamond ring, kept it for 6 months, no one ever asked about it, and he gave it to his wife. Empty drug bags, used condoms, needles, money, discarded lotto tickets. Usually the norm. If you are lucky, maybe an infestation of roaches sometimes. Lol. Why have so many people in the comments found purple dildos? Not elevator maintenance, but one time I dropped a set of wheels for a cart in the crack. I'm sure some maintenance man is going to be concerned to find loose wheels in the elevator of a nursing home, like some elder person is walking around with a wheel-less walker. There are at least 6 people who saw a purple DLDO and everyone left it there. Either all have seen the same purple DLDO or purple dildos are more a common sight at the bottom of the elevator shaft. Absolutely sure everyone is telling the truth.